that I'm all the way in Wisconsin, so a little bit further from you guys in California, but we have some great animals in store for you to meet
It
today
snowed.
because we are going to be meeting some critters because we're from the zoo. We're located in the Green Bay area in Wisconsin, if you know where that is. And believe it or not, we don't have any snow yet. That's been sticking to the ground. It has snowed a couple times, but we'll have to wait and see if we're going to have a white Christmas this year. But I'm sure you guys don't have any snow over by you, do you?
Oh, wait.
Now, a little bit
No.
too warm to get
California,
snow by
no.
you.
It's chilly, but
But we are going to have lots of fun. I'm going to be bringing out an animal one at a time for you all to see nice and up close. And because there is so many of us, what I'd like us to do is to try to save our questions until the end. So if, as I'm talking about an animal, you want to know more, just kind of keep that in your brain, think about it, and then I'll jump to questions at the very end after meeting all of the animals. And then if you can, mute yourself just so that it's a little bit easier for everybody to hear all of the awesome things that I say. That would be great too. But without further ado, we are going to get ready to meet animal number one. We are going to start small and visit one of the smallest creatures that I'm going to show you today. And he, or I should say she, is in the reptile family. So she is going to be able to fit in the palm of my hand. And believe it or not, she is one that you would not find in Wisconsin and you would not find in California. She lives halfway around the world, believe it or not. Let's see who animal number one is. Now, I do have a few helpers today, so you might see a few hands other than mine coming in the screen too. But we're going to say hi to Lightning. Can you all wave hello? Hi. Now, Lightning here is known as a leopard gecko. So again, she is in the lizard family. You can see, let me bring her up just a little bit more here. She has lots of beautiful spots all over her body. And she got her name leopard gecko because she has spots very similar to that of the big cat leopard. So all of those lovely spots help her camouflage or blend in. She is actually going to be found in a desert habitat. So she prefers to live more in a place like you guys where it's nice and toasty most of the year, although she'd be found in the deserts of the Middle East. So places like Pakistan or even India is where she can be found in the wilds. Now you can get a nice good look at her whole entire body. They're not very big, only about 6 inches long or so, but a lot of their body is actually their tail. Can you guys see just how big and beautiful that tail is? Oh, it is so big, and it actually has a really important job because Lightning here, she's not wanting to show her face. Let's see if I can turn her around here. Lightning here, she is small enough that there are some creatures that might want to eat her as a snack. So in order for her to stay as safe as can be, what she does is she shows off this big, beautiful tail, which looks very juicy and tasty to something maybe like a fox. So as Lightning's walking through the sand and the rocks of the desert, if that fox sees her tail, they chomp down on that part first, because if she can't run away, what she can do is actually drop her tail. So if something grabs her, she breaks off her tail so she can run away and stay safe. Now, at first you might think, oh, break off her tail? That must not be fun. And while it does probably hurt for just a little bit, it's a lot better than having her whole body eaten by that predator or that big animal that thinks she's tasty. So being able to drop her tail is actually super duper helpful. Now, Lightning has been growing this big, beautiful tail for quite some time. If she were to lose her tail, they actually can regrow it again. So it's kind of fun. They are able to regenerate or regrow that tail so that she can have another one in the future. But they can usually only do it that one time. Now I'm going to turn her face a little bit more close to you all so you can see that a little bit better. There she is. The movement that you're seeing is just her breathing. So just like when people breathe, sometimes you can see our neck and our chest move. That's what you're seeing on Lightning here. And do you all see this little kind of slit or hole kind of right here on the side of her head? Now that is actually her ear hole. Believe it or not, lizards have ears just like you and I. It's just that they don't have this extra flap on the outside. It's just a hole on the side of their head. So she can actually hear pretty well, just not quite as good as we would because we have those extra flaps to help us catch that sound. Ooh, and she's taking a look at you guys. I'm trying to get her as close as I can here so you can see all those beautiful markings and patterns and even her eyeballs. Ooh, there we go. Miss Lightning, what's also really cool about leopard geckos is when they need to, they can blink just like we can to clean their eyes. And a few other geckos in the world will actually lick their eyeballs clean. Now that sounds a little bit weird, and for us, it really wouldn't work. Our tongue isn't quite long enough. If you want to give it a try, will your tongue reach your eyeball? Ugh, ugh. No, for us as people, it doesn't really work that way, but some geckos, that's how they make sure their eyeballs stay clean, which is kind of cool and crazy at the same time. Now she does have little tiny claws on her little fingers and little toes that do help her get a decent grip on that sand, which also is something different than her and other geckos. If you've heard of geckos before or maybe seen pictures, some of you might be envisioning animals that have really thick, really big toes that they can use to stick to things. But because she's a desert type of gecko, she doesn't want big, sticky toes because it would be really hard to run and walk through the sand. So instead, she just has tiny little itty bitty toes on her arms and legs instead. Pretty exciting. There is one last thing I want to tell you about my friend Lightning, and that has to deal with what she eats. Believe it or not, she is going to prefer bugs. Those are going to be her favoriteest foods, little crickets, even a spider every now and then. But believe it or not, she can actually eat scorpions. Now, do you guys have scorpions down by you at all? No? Okay, whew, that's good. They can be a little bit scary sometimes because they're the ones that have the stinger on their tail. But what's really cool about leopard geckos is they don't get hurt very much by a scorpion sting. So if Miss Lightning here is walking throughout the desert and sees a scorpion, tries to sneak up on him and get stung, it's not going to hurt her that much and she can still take a bite and eat that scorpion for a snack because that venom that is inside that scorpion doesn't really hurt her like it does other animals. So that's something else that's pretty cool and unique to Miss Lightning here. Isn't she just gorgeous? Oh, great. Now, I do want to make sure we are able to meet my other friends. So would you like to wave goodbye to Lightning the leopard gecko? Bye. All right, I'm going to step off and put her down for just a second and be back with my next animal. Dun, dun, dun. Here he comes. We are going to be meeting another reptile, believe it or not, but this guy is a tad bit bigger and he's kind of just as wiggly. Can you all wave hello to Arwen? Hi. Here he is. He's kind of waving back at you here. Very exciting. Arwen is known as an Asian leaf turtle. So his name actually tells us quite a few things about him. Of course, he has this big, beautiful shell on the top and the bottom, which makes him a turtle. He is found in Asia in the wild, usually in wetlands. So places that have maybe slow moving rivers or ponds and swamps, those are gonna be his very, very, very favorite places to be. And the word leaf in his name for Asian leaf turtle talks about the shape of his shell. I'm gonna kind of turn him around a little bit here so you can see his shell a little bit better. Do you see all those lovely patterns and colors on his shell? They're different shades of brown, but they help him out a lot because when he is swimming in the water, if you look at him from up above, it kind of looks like he's a dead leaf just kind of floating and hanging out in the water. So it's a great way for him to stay hidden when he is swimming about in and near the water. Now I'm going to go ahead and bring him up a little bit closer so you can get a nice look at his face there as we kind of focus in. Arwen is a very active guy. As you can see, he's still kind of air swimming a little bit. because that's what he does most of the time in the wild, would be swimming or spending time really, really close to that water. So he very naturally wants to keep moving with his beautiful webbed feet. Let's see if we can take a look at those. Those ones are great for swimming through the water nice and quickly. He is going to be looking for things like fish or even water plants. He'll eat just about anything. He's not a super picky guy. So having those nice webbed feet allow him to get to a lot of different places and hopefully catch some of those pretty fast fish. Now, one thing that you might notice about Arwen is the shape of his shell. I'm going to turn him a little bit sideways here. Now, do you notice that he has this little crater inside of his shell? Now, believe it or not, that is not normal. What happened was when Arwen was a young growing turtle, he actually lived with someone in their house as a pet. And unfortunately, that person didn't give him all the right foods. When he was eating his breakfast, lunch, and dinner, he missed out on some really, really important vitamins and minerals that caused his shell to not form the right way. So luckily, that person realized, uh-oh, Arwen's shell looks a little bit weird. Let's go get that checked out. And when that person realized that they weren't able to care for him very well, he made his way over to the new zoo, and now he's been living here with us. So while we can't change the shell because that's the shape that it grew into when he was a younger guy, he is getting all the right foods, all the right vitamins and minerals to make him a healthy turtle. Believe it or not, he is 21 years old. He is right kind of at middle aged for a turtle. Ones that are this side can live to be about 50 or so. If they're lucky, they can maybe live a little bit longer. But being 21, he's just about halfway to what we would expect him to be. Now, as a turtle, he also will eat many different things. I mentioned fish and plants, but he also loves to eat his fruits and vegetables. So here at the zoo, we do give him a bit of a salad. So if any of you like cucumbers or tomatoes or even blueberries on your salad, Arwen would eat the same thing. Again, he's not too picky, so he will munch on just about all of those things. And he has a very special mouth. I'm going to bring him in close again here. I'm going to scooch out of the way so just him is on the screen here. Let's see if his face will kind of focus in a little bit. But his mouth is different than yours or mine because he has something called a beak. So just like a bird has a very hard mouth to help them eat, turtles are the same. He can crunch through fish, he can crunch through crunchy carrots and leaves and grasses, all because his mouth itself is very hard. If I asked Arwen to smile, he wouldn't have any teeth to show me because it's just his mouth that helps him to eat. Now, one thing that you might have seen really quickly when I brought him close, it has to do with his eyes. So what I want you to do is try to have a staring contest with my turtle friend Arwen. And we're going to watch to see if he blinks because he blinks a lot different than we do. We're going to kind of, oh, did any of you see him blink just there? Keep watching and hopefully he'll do it again. What he does when he needs to kind of clean his eyeballs or make sure that they're still wet and nice, what he does is he uses his clear eyelid to blink them closed. So his eyelids work a little bit more like a window. That way, when he's swimming underwater, he can still see where he's going and protect his eyeballs at the same time. So he's basically wearing a pair of goggles all the time when he wants to. When we close our eyes as people, if you guys want to try it, close your eyes. Can you see anything? Oh, of course not, because our eyelids are made of skin and we can't see through that. But as a turtle and a few other animals that live in the water, their eyes are built to be seen through even when they're closed. So that's one of my favoriteest things about Arwen and his other turtle friends is the fact that his eyeballs work a little bit differently than us. Now, as you can see, nice and close to his face, he does have those lovely stripes and markings on his head. But then as you get closer to his body, he does have some kind of more yellowish orange colors going on. And that's just because most of the time that part of his body is tucked under his shell. So it doesn't need this brown camouflage to kind of blend in and stay safe. It can just kind of stay a light color when it's nice and close to his body. Now, I have a great turtle question for you, and I'm going to need your help. I know that we're all muted, so what we're going to do is we're going to raise our hand for this one because I have a yes or no question. Now, we know that turtles have these big, beautiful shells to keep them safe. And what I want to know is if you think Arwen felt super safe and super happy, do you think that he could climb out of his shell and leave it behind? Okay. If you think yes, he can leave his shell, go ahead and raise your hand for me. Whew. I have you guys on gallery view so I can see quite a few of you. Oh, all right. I see a few hands up. Great. All right, everybody put your hands down. Now, who thinks that Arwen the turtle cannot leave his shell? Go ahead and raise your hand now or give me a wave. Oh, I see quite a few more hands this time. All of you raising your hands now would be correct. Arwen can never leave his shell because it's part of his body. His backbone is actually part of his shell. So we all as humans, we have backbones that you might be able to feel, those bumps going down your back. We all have one of those, but for him, he has this big, beautiful shell that's connected to it as well. So even if he wanted to, he could never leave his shell behind. Awesome. Thanks for playing that little game for us here. But I do want to scooch on to my next animal friend. So let's give a lovely turtle wave goodbye to Arwen. And we'll see who is coming up next. Ooh, he might be waving goodbye too. Let's see. You want to wave goodbye, Arwen? All right, awesome. We'll tuck him away and I'm going to get my next critter. Thank you. All right, now my next animal is my third and final reptile, but I couldn't pass up introducing you to my next critter because she is very awesome. And believe it or not, she is one that some people can be a little bit afraid or just unsure about, but don't worry, she is a nice friend for us to meet. Everybody say hello to Pi. You want to give her a nice little wave? We, of course, are meeting one of my snakes next. Whew. Now, some of you might be a little unsure about snakes, rightfully so, because they are predators. But luckily, snakes aren't going to go after people. They're going to go after smaller things like rats or mice, or maybe even frogs and bugs if they're a smaller snake. But Pi here is known as a ball python. So right now she is using herself as a great example right now because she's wrapped up in a nice little ball. This is what ball pythons do most of the time when they are just relaxing and just kind of waiting. They like their food to come to them. So when they are all curled up like this, they can wait for something to maybe sneak a little too close for when they do get hungry. Now, ball pythons are in the constrictor family. And basically, constrictor snakes are the ones that use all of these beautiful, strong muscles to wrap around their food and squeeze really tight so that they're able to eat it easily. They want to make sure that their food is dead before they eat it. And so some snakes, like Miss Pi here, they just use their muscles and they wrap around it really tight. She is not a venomous snake. She does not have any venom or poison inside of her fangs or inside of her mouth. She doesn't even have fangs, only the venomous ones do. So that's why she is such a sweetheart and why she's just hanging out with me today. Now, again, I am going to bring her close so you can get a nice closer look at her face. And she might decide to stick out her tongue as well. Snakes, and believe it or not, a few lizards will do that as well. But snakes will use their tongue to smell. Now, for us as people, can you all point to what we smell with? What do we smell with as people? Yes, we use our lovely noses, but snakes like Pi, they're just built to use their tongue instead. And here she goes. Let's see if she'll stick it out again. There it is. What she's doing is she's trying to smell the air with her tongue. Oh, there she goes. Because with our noses, what happens is when we breathe in, as a human, our smells that are invisible in the air go droop right up your nose, and it sends a message to your brain that says, oh, it smells like chocolate chip cookies. But snakes, their nose doesn't work like that. Instead, what they do is they use their tongue instead, because it's so wet and sticky, to catch all of the smell particles. Where are you going, sweetie? They catch all of the smell particles with their beautiful tongue, bring it inside their mouth, stick it on the roof of their mouth, and that is where the message gets sent to their brain to tell them if it smells like a rat or a mouse or something tasty for them to slither towards. So that's why you'll see snakes sticking out their tongue a lot, is they're just trying to smell and figure out what's around them. Snakes don't have the best eyesight. They're going to use their smell to figure out what's going on around them. Now, I already mentioned again that she does eat other animals, and we're going to try to figure out how she's able to do that. Because snakes, they do not chew their food like we do. And she can't use a knife or a fork to cut it to pieces. She has no arms to hold on to those. So instead, snakes are built to grab onto their food and swallow it whole. She's really on the move today. What she can do is she can stretch her mouth bigger than her head. Can any of you do that? Can any of you stretch your mouth bigger than your head? Give it a shot. Let's see. Ooh, we have quite a few big mouths out there. I see some big ones, but you're never going to get as big of a snake. And that's because our jaws work differently. And I want to try an experiment with all of you, okay? So let me just situate Miss Pie here. What I would like you all to do is go ahead and point up one of your pointer fingers like this, okay? Put your pointer finger right in front of your ear. So not inside, but right in front. And then go ahead and open and close your mouth a few times. Now, do you feel that bump that moves when you open your mouth? Yeah, that is where your bottom teeth and your top teeth are connected. For us as people, our jawbones are only able to stretch so far. But as a snake, they have an extra bone at that spot of their head, so they are able to stretch, and be able to swallow something that's anywhere from 3 to 5 times the size of their head. So Pie here, she only eats once every week here at the zoo because it takes her body that long to eat such a big piece of food. And if all of us magically turned ourselves into snakes right now and were able to swallow something huge, bigger than our head, we could take a whole-sized watermelon and just gulp it down in one bite. Can you guys imagine a whole watermelon or even a pumpkin? We just finished Halloween and Thanksgiving a few months ago. Can you imagine swallowing a whole pumpkin at one time? Oh, but that's how snakes decide to do it, and it works for them. Now, last but not least, I do want to talk about her beautiful eyeballs as well. Let's go ahead and bring her nice and close again. Ooh, and she's trying to smell you guys through the camera. But her eyeballs are different than yours and mine and even Arwen, that lovely turtle that we just met, because she cannot blink at all. Whew, coming off the screen here. Instead, snakes have a clear scale that goes over their eyeball all the time that protects them. So even if you tried to have a staring contest with Pie, she would always win because she never, ever blinks. Now, again, I know that snakes are not everybody's favorite animal, but I think they're pretty cool, and they do have some pretty special, unique things about them, like her eyes and like her big, beautiful pink tongue, and their body in general. Now, of course, I can't put Pie away without telling you about her beautiful coloring. That's one thing I forgot to mention in the beginning, but she is known as a piebald ball python. That means that some of her body kind of missed out on the coloring. Do you see all these patches of white that she has? That's not naturally going to be there in wild ball pythons, but because she again was somebody's pet before living at the zoo, she was born with just a few different colors because she was in a breeding program. And so these colors basically just didn't get all of these yellow and brown spots like on the rest of her body. So she just has a little bit of a special different color going on, which makes her even more special and even more unique than the other snakes that we have here at the new zoo. Pretty exciting, huh? Alrighty, perfect. Well, do you all want to wave goodbye to Pi? Woo, maybe stick out your tongue a few times at her if you want in a nice loving way. Are you gonna stick out your tongue one more time? Nope, Pi decided she didn't want to. That's okay. But we are gonna tuck Pi away and meet my very last animal friend and find out who she is. Bum, bum, bum. All right, it'll take me just a second to scoop her up here, guys. Oh, yep, and he is being a little bit special today. All right, do you want to stand up in the wings just in case? All right, so we changed plans just a little bit for my last critter. We are going to show you her in one of her little houses. Can you all say hi to Sylvia? You want to wave hello? Now, it is a little bit tricky to see right now, but Sylvia is actually a chinchilla. Chinchillas are related to mice and rats, so some of you might kind of see those big eyes and those big ears. But what we are doing right now in this little house is she has some dust in there to help her stay clean. Chinchillas are known for getting dust baths in order to keep their fur all nice and ready to go. And with Miss Sylvia, she jumped into her lovely dust bath box and decided she wanted to hang out in there for a little bit. So hopefully she will pop on out for us in just a little while, but we'll let her hang out in here to get things started. Now, the reason that chinchillas will take dust baths instead of going into water baths like we do as people is because their fur is very, very thick and very, very soft. They have some of the softest furs in the world. And it's so thick that if she were to take a water bath or if her fur gets wet, the water gets stuck in between all of her fur and she never dries out. Now, for a chinchilla, that's not so good because in the wild, oh, where'd your face go? There it is. In the wild, they live up high in the mountains where it can get very, very cold. So if they get wet and they can't dry out, they're going to get very cold very quickly, and it's not going to be a very fun time for them. So giving her dust baths here at the zoo, make sure that she stays clean. Even though she's not living in the mountains, we want her to kind of feel like she's living in the mountains too. What do you think, Miss Sylvia? Now, Sylvia is actually new to the new zoo. It's kind of funny. She came here just a few months ago from another zoo. So she is also just trying to get used to all this virtual stuff, seeing people through a video screen, because that's something that she's only done a few times as well. But now that she's kind of peeking out, I'm going to bring her up nice and close. And I want you to take a look at those nice long hairs on her nose. Are you checking them out, Miss Sylvia? Now, sometimes those long hairs on her nose move, and that's because she's taking a few sniffs. But usually she uses those lovely hairs called whiskers to feel around. Chinchillas, they love to spend their time out at nighttime. They're actually a nocturnal critter. And so there we go, having all of those beautiful long whiskers are going to make sure that she can feel around when it's dark. She loves to spend time in tunnels underneath the rocks, and usually there's not very much light in there. So having her whiskers be longer than her body is allows her to kind of feel around and make sure she doesn't bump into a wall or bump into another rock while she is crawling through those tunnels. And we can't talk about chinchillas without talking about those big, beautiful ears. Can you guys see that? Now, her ears are a mixture of kind of white and black, a little bit of pink as well. And that's just her coloring. Some chinchillas, they're going to have a solid color ear. Some are going to be more on the pink side. It just depends on the individual. But because these guys are awake at nighttime, they will use their ears to listen for predators sneaking up on them and for other chinchillas. Because, again, they're related to rats and mice. They will make lots of squeaks, lots of little chittery noises to talk to each other. So while they can't use words like people can, they are going to be using their own language to talk to each other. They have different sounds and noises if they found a really nice, maybe a pile of leaves or bushes to munch on, as they are plant eaters. Or they might make a sound of a predator's nearby to let other chinchillas know to duck in cover and hide somewhere. So they have lots and lots of different sounds that they will use, and having big ears like Miss Sylvia allow her to really hear all of those things. Now, I'm going to do my best to kind of sneak in to her little dust bath here today, because that is where she's seeming the most comfortable. I did kind of have my hand out ready for her to come if she wanted to, but she feels like she wants to stay in there for us today. Let's see, she's kind of tucked right in there. Do you see those big, beautiful eyes as well? They're actually tucked on the side of her head. If you kind of look, there's one way over here, and the other eye is all the way on this side of her head. And that allows her to see a lot of things at once. For us as people, our eyeballs are right in the front of our head, so we can really focus on what's in front of us. But Sylvia and other prey animals, ones that get eaten by others, sometimes their face has their eyes on the side instead. Woo, kind of had you turn there a little bit. Awesome. Now, what I'm going to do is I am going to set her down just off screen and see if she wants to pop out. I don't have any guarantees, but I'm going to see just off screen if she'll pop out for us. And if not, we can jump to some questions, okay? So be thinking of all the animals we met. We met a leopard gecko, we met a turtle, we met a snake, and we just met Miss Sylvia, the lovely chinchilla. If there's anything that I didn't mention that you want to know, think of some of those questions and I'll take a few. So give me just a second and I'll see if she wants to pop out, okay? Hold on. Dun, dun, dun. What do you think, Miss Sylvia? Would you like to come meet my friends? Oh, looks like Miss Sylvia is not quite ready to come out today, so we are gonna let her be in her dust bath. But now I do wanna open it up to you guys and see if you have any questions. So everybody, I see it looks like is muted. So if you do have a question, feel free to unmute yourself and go ahead and ask away, okay? Does anybody wanna know anything else about my animals? Go ahead.
I have one.
Yes.
For your second animal, the turtle, Irwin.
Yes.
How long you said he's been with you guys for a while? How long has he been with you guys?
Yes, so he is 21 years old and he's been at the zoo for about 15 or 16 years. So he's been with us most of his life.
And then the second question is, you guys have cold weather there, and you said he likes to stay in the water. During the winter time, he also likes to stay in the water and swim about and things like that?
That is a great question, and I'm so glad you asked because Arwen actually lives inside. So he gets to go outside in the summertime. We have a special little playpen that we'll set up in the grass for him to stretch his legs and kind of move around. But most of the time, he is going to be spending time indoors in his habitat that is inside one of our buildings. All of our education animals are located inside. Once you go outside into the zoo, that's where we have a few more of the bigger animals and ones that can handle our Wisconsin winters. We do have a few exceptions, like some parrots, some of our tropical birds, for example. They will be outside in the summer, and then we do move them inside for the winter time. But usually most of our reptiles and most of our more warm weather critters, they spend their time inside buildings.
Thank you.
Great, those were awesome questions. Is there anybody else that's curious about the animals, or if you want to know about the zoo in general, or if you have a different animal question, I can try to answer those too. Yes.
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Do the animals have companions that are similar to theirs? Do they have friends that are alike?
Ooh, that is another great question. Thank you, Helen. And yes, a lot of them do, but it is actually going to depend on the type or on the species. So I'll give you a few examples. That turtle that we were just talking about, Mr. Arwin, he actually does have a roommate named Lily, and she is known as a box turtle. So while they're not the same species or type of turtle, they seem to get along pretty well and they enjoy each other's company. So they are basically roommates that hang out in the same habitat, in the same home. And then we do have quite a few animals that live outside in the zoo that do have a mate or a partner. So we do have 2 lions. We have a boy and a girl. We do have 2 giraffes, again, a boy and a girl. So there are quite a few animals that are matched up that way as well. But there are a few that prefer to be alone. So snakes are a very good example of that. Most snakes in the world are just gonna slither off and do their own thing. They don't really need to be near other snakes. And sometimes they'd have to compete with those other snakes to get food and things like that. So it's actually better for those types of animals to be living on their own. Another example is our snow leopard. We currently have a boy named Rajan, a